Hi, good morning. My name's Rich and we're Consumer Hub. We focus on recruiting, marketing, innovation and sales professionals across the FMCG sector. And this is the FMCG Podcast, where we speak with some of the best minds in the industry and hear their take on career development and also their category expertise. Very, very excited to have Adam Sopher on the show today from Joe and Sephs, a popcorn brand which we're sure you'll have heard of and hopefully you've tasted as well. You're going to be getting into the Joe and Sephs story and hearing all about Adam's take on the business, the category and his advice for your career as well. So Adam, thanks very much for coming on the show. Just a quick one over to you. Can you just give us a top line intro to you and the business?
Of course, yeah, thanks for having us. So I'm Adam. I co-founded Joe and Sephs back in 2010. My God, that's a long time ago. With my parents.
Nice.
And the name of Joe and Sephs comes from my dad's name, Joseph. So it's literally his name split into two, Joe and Seph. And the reason he gets all the credit on the branding is he is our chef. He is the guy that back in 2010 made popcorn in my parents' kitchen, burnt lots of pots and pans. And really we had one aim, which was to make the best tasting popcorn there is. And that's what Joe and Sephs stands for. It's what we do. It's what we did and what we do now, just albeit on a bit of a bigger scale now. We're sort of a family business. And yeah, it's been 12 years of making great tasting popcorn and some other products now as well.
Smashing. No, that's wonderful. Yeah, I've had quite a lot of your stuff over the years at Christmas, actually. It's very, very good. It's a particular favourite of me and my dad's. So when we got the note through about doing the podcast, I was like, yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, it's amazing, actually, how many people consume Joe and Sephs at Christmas. It's a proper, it's become a proper Christmas staple now, which is awesome.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. For me, it's kind of... it's like drinking elderflower cordial in the summer. It's just it signals the season, you know.
It'll be done. Yeah,
absolutely. So, so just, thank you for talking us through the branding, because that's going to be my next question is, where's the Joe and the Sephs thing from? That's really interesting. And
the quirk, so if you're a branding kind of person,
the
quirk is if you look at our logo, it's the same hat above Seph and Joe, but flipped upside down. So the chef's hat and the top hat are actually inverted. So if you read into the branding, you can in fact determine that Joe and Seph is the same person wearing two different hats.
I love that. I hadn't noticed. That's great. Well, that's great. So is that your dad's background? Was he a chef then?
No, not at all. He just loves popcorn. So most parents would cook their kids spaghetti bolognese or something when they're growing up.
Yeah.
He made popcorn, and for years he used to work in the electrical industry, totally not FMCG.
Yeah.
And for years he just made popcorn because he was inspired from a trip to America, where in America 10, 12 years ago there used to be caramel popcorn.
Yeah.
But not flavored, just caramel popcorn. It was just much better than what was available in the UK. And so that kind of inspired him to create something that was better than that, because most of the US stuff was maybe with artificial ingredients, etc.
Yeah.
And so he spent years in the kitchen after he retired, just trying to make a much better tasting popcorn in a whole variety of flavors.
Nice.
And it got to a point in 2010 where we were like, actually, this is really good. Let's take it to a food show. We stood there, me, my mum and dad, and my now wife stood behind the stand selling what we made in the kitchen the day before.
Yeah.
And it went crazy, and it was then that we knew that we had something. And what do we do with it now?
Yeah, great. And what about your background then, Adam? Because people will be interested to know kind of where that kind of comes into the story. Had you got a food and drink industry background? Were you electricals? Where was that?
No, well, weirdly electrical kind of. So I used to work. So I worked in the city after I graduated, and then did 3 years there, and then worked for Dixon's Retail, who used to own Currys and PC World. Now Dixon's Car Phone Warehouse. So I did a sort of head office role for them for a few years. And for the first year of Joe and Sephs, I did Joe and Sephs on the side whilst that role was ongoing. So it kind of was, and actually my last role there was kind of creating a film proposition for them.
Yeah.
So I did loads of work working with kind of in the industry. And so it was almost weird that I was working on this film project. My dad had made a load of popcorn. We were going to this food show and people went, wow, we love popcorn.
Yeah.
All at the same time, went, right, let's start a business.
Great. Oh, I love that. Okay. Well, just for people that aren't as familiar with the products as we are, just to tell people about your range now. Is it just popcorn? Do you do other stuff? And also within that, what's your favourite flavour? What's your favourite product and why?
So we make a range of over 80 flavors of gourmet popcorn.
Nice.
Everything from goat's cheese and black pepper,
Yeah.
which is, if you love goat's cheese, is the best thing. Salted caramel is very much like the staple in the range. We also do some amazing collaborations with brands like Marmite. We had the rights to do the 007 James Bond popcorn for the film last year, which was like a dry martini popcorn, popped not stirred. Took me a while to come up with that one.
A few late nights.
Literally a few dry martinis, and then we also have a range of caramel sauces and kind of more chocolatey versions of the popcorn as well. Favorite flavor? Well, it does depend on the time of day. I can have a different flavor at different points in the day. Salted caramel all day long, but I love goat cheese and black pepper. It's sort of that's a nice afternoon snack. Gingerbread in the winter. Coconut and cinnamon for like a warm day like today.
It does sound like there's a flavour for everyone. If you like popcorn,
for sure.
It sounds like you've got a flavour there.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm not a huge goat's cheese aficionado. I do eat it, but my wife is pretty mad for it. So I'll have to let her know because I don't think she'll have had goat's cheese popcorn before. That sounds great.
Nah, it's really different. And the what we do that's so unique is we will take real goat's cheese and coat it on popcorn. There is no artificial stuff going on. And when you eat a piece of it, it is like eating goat's cheese. It's really, really strong flavour. So we're not one of those brands where you've got to eat it kind of by the handful to get loads of flavour. You get a hit of flavour on every piece.
Yeah. It's interesting, like all the black pepper stuff. Like I really like it. My favourite crisps are salt and vinegar, and then followed by black pepper, just really simple black pepper, sea salt. And I think when you let the black pepper shine, it's a really good flavour. But people, you always just think about kind of that brown pepper in a shaker, don't you, from when you were a kid. Maybe not in your house. Sounds like your dad had good gear on the go. But it's a great flavour profile. So what I was really interested to do is kind of just get into a bit of your knowledge now on the kind of the category, because most of the people that listen to our podcast and watch it, they're in the food and drink industry. They're interested in category trends. Like you touched on it there, but what makes Joe and Sephs different from other sort of entrants in the space, because it's a very popular and busy space? And then within that, what are some of the key headline trends that you're seeing at the moment in popcorn?
If we rewind back to like the start of the popcorn category, as I like to call it, which was prior to 2010, the popcorn category was just pretty much Butterkist and supermarket own label popcorn. And for whatever reason, weirdly, within 6 months of each other, us, Tyrrell's, Metcalfe's and Popcorn all launched popcorn. And I think the sort of combination of lots of small brands or smaller brands pushing helped sort of build the category. And the point of difference, I guess, we've got versus some of those other brands I mentioned we are all about indulgence, premium, nothing artificial, and kind of a real range of flavors. Like I want you to eat a bag of Joe and Sephs and go, wow, that was great. And it's made my experience watching that film or my snacking occasion even more exciting. And even better than it could have been. So our point of difference is about the way that we make the popcorn. Basically means it's much better tasting. We've got over 80 great taste awards, and kind of give us the kind of credentials on taste. What was the second part of the question? Sorry.
Yeah, just within that, like, what are some of the key trends in the moment for the category? But let me dive on that, because I was watching your Vimeo channel before we'd jumped on this, and it looks like you've got some interesting tech in the factory about how you actually take the popcorn from a kernel and pop it. Like, how do you do that?
Basically our process is totally different to how everyone else would normally make popcorn. Normally a popcorn factory, if you were to kind of go to a normal popcorn factory, would be very similar looking to a crisp factory. It's kind of big old production line. Our popcorn is handmade, hand stirred, hand coated. And so we are taking, in the case of, for example, salted caramel, we're making a real caramel with amazing sea salt, British sea salt, English butter, and coating that on top of popcorn using a very secret process that I can't reveal. It basically means that every single piece is fully coated, fully enrobed in the caramel. And the result of that is that you get in every bag of Joe and Sephs, there's no small pieces, it's only big whole pieces of corn. And you get a really nice crunch as well off the back of it. But in terms of trends, we're seeing like indulgence is a big one. So I think it feels like we're sort of going to a more recessionary environment. People are tightening their purse strings a little bit. And in the last recession, affordable indulgence was a kind of quite a big trend. So something that's a little bit more expensive, but that makes your experience a whole heap better, is something that tends to grow, we find, in recessions. And we think of Joe and Sephs as that. You might spend an extra 50p for a bag or £1 a bag, but it gives you an amazing experience at home watching a movie or an amazing snack to eat with dinner. That's still cheaper than going out as a family of four to go to the cinema or to eat a meal or whatever it might be. So yeah, we think the affordable indulgence of brands that really like deliver on taste and quality and premium experience will do really well.
Nailing that date night slot.
I think so, yeah. And then the other extreme we're seeing is HFSS is obviously like a thing at the moment. And so those brands that are super compliant with HFSS and kind of deliver the opposite end of the spectrum, really, really, really healthy, with far less of the indulgence, it feels like will be quite successful at the moment. So those would be the two main things that we're seeing. And we obviously play in the first one.
Right, interesting. Yeah. And just to take you back on the tech as well, is it? I might have got this wrong, so correct me if that is the case. But do you bake the popcorn rather than create the pop-in oil as well? Is that?
So it's actually, we do kind of both. So we'll pop using hot air instead of oil, which makes it kind of lower calorie than and free of that oil taste. But we will also, at the end of our process, give it an extra bake to make it extra crunchy as well.
Nice. Okay, that's really interesting. Great. So that's really interesting then. So kind of premiumization, like everyday luxury, but then also HFSS, so kind of avoiding the middle ground.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
How do you, so more widely in snacking? Are there any kind of bigger macro trends that tie into that, or do you think popcorn's got its own sort of unique landscape at the moment?
No, I think snacking overall. I mean, COVID's obviously not snacking for six, right? The sort of the everyday eating occasion with your lunch, when you're kind of commuting to the office, etc., like died a death. And so those kind of single serve packs during COVID were really struggling. And I think I think most of that's come back. There's still a good amount that hasn't, as people there's a lot more work from home, etc. now. But no, I think snacking overall is performing well. I think, but popcorn as a category. I mean, we've got some really exciting launches coming up in later this year, which I can't quite reveal yet. But we'll put Joe and Sephs into some wider distribution, and
nice.
And I think therefore there is a trend towards kind of premium and the popcorn category needs kind of brands playing in both those spaces, HFSS and indulgent. I hope anyway. That's the plan. That's the strategy.
And have you found there's been a big uplift in D2C and that engaging direct with consumers who are wanting to short circuit that convenience trip on the way home from work and just order stuff in for those, date night occasions, family occasions where like they want to just, up weight and everyday occasions to be more special? Are you finding that's a trend for the business?
For sure, it was during COVID. I mean, our business prior to COVID was probably half of it was cinemas, theatres, food service, and airline kind of travel space. So all of that disappeared. So we had to kind of pivot and do something different. And D2C for us was incredibly successful. So we actually replaced all the sales that we lost and grew a whole load more, all through the D2C channel. Now, a lot of that has gone away. A lot of it was specific to kind of COVID, people working from home and indulging. But the result of it has been amazing. So we've built a significant user base of consumers who are happy for us to interact with them kind of on our subscription list, etc. Nice. And what's really exciting about that is then when we go and launch in somewhere nationwide, we can communicate to all those people and tell them that and give the launch a much better chance of success. So we've seen base. Exactly. And it's great. Even recently we've done some stuff where we've been playing with some products and the team are kind of 50-50 on some different angles, and so we've got kind of a core. Some of those users are, some of those subscribers are now a sort of kind of tasting community for us.
Brilliant.
And so we're testing MPD on them.
Yeah,
so we've got loads of, so D2C, yes, it's grown considerably. It is a lot less than it was during COVID, but it's a lot bigger than it was before.
Yeah, it's really interesting you mentioned that about the output of that being, despite sales dropping off a little bit, maintaining that community, because we've done a lot of recruitment in the digital space in the last year, as you'd expect, and one of the big trends has been PR outreach and digital community engagement. Whereas before it felt like a lot of the roles were quite focused on paid media, kind of driving sales to those online baskets. Whereas now it seems like actually it's the brand, it's the soft brand development over time that people are interested, because people have seen the value of it, having seen the output, like saying that community development. It's just happened organically. So it's right, there's something here. Let's run with it. Let's invest in it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've built. What's awesome is we spent 12 years building a brand like the hard way. We never had funding until 2019. So we spent, and we manufacture the popcorn ourselves. We're not one of those brands that sort of outsources it all. So we've done the hard miles, I guess, and well, there's still loads more to do. But I think as a result, there's a good amount of people who've sort of followed us on that journey and we've built our community quite organically. Who exactly want to interact with us and want to understand more about what we're doing, and I think that is definitely our focus at the moment, is building that community. Yeah.
And you kind of touched on it there. I mean, are you able to kind of share where you're listed at the moment and kind of any exciting listings that have come through in the last year?
So kind of broadly, Joe and Sephs is in most cinemas, theatres, and Waitrose, Ocado, premium stores like Selfridges, etc., Whole Foods, Harvey Next, and some airlines as well. And we also do a good amount of export, so you'll find us in kind of good premium stores around the world. And in terms of what's coming up, we've got some really exciting new products launching, and some kind of more nationwide distribution, kind of in areas that we're not currently focused.
Great.
But I can't quite reveal it. So.
No,
I'm gonna be that annoying. I'm gonna be that annoying guy on the podcast that never tells you what you want to know. But it's really great. So some exciting stuff coming out.
Well, just touching on the listings piece, it's something that feedback I've had from people that watching listeners is that they're always interested in how you build a brand, and obviously you guys have done it the hard way. You kind of kept control. You're manufacturing yourselves. You've not had loads of external cash. Other people speak to, they get VC cash straight from the offset, and that often affects that journey going. Actually, what accounts you target from the off. And it's interesting that you're in those premium, occasion-led routes to market. So I've often seen that's a trend in sort of businesses that kind of have more ownership of the whole end-to-end process. Like, if there's somebody out there that's watching this and they've got a smaller business or they've got an idea and they want to kind of grow it organically rather than go for the investment early on, like, what advice would you have for them around channel development, just so they can avoid wasting time? Because there is a lot of tire kicking, isn't there, when you can waste your time, can't you, with the wrong people?
I mean, look, you're spot on, right? So if by having your own, so when we started Joe and Sephs, we were in like a rent by the hour kitchen. We would literally turn up, clean it, cook, clean it, go.
Yeah,
and that was and then we made the popcorn, stored it in a warehouse, and packed it to order.
Great.
And so the benefit of that was, if Selfridges ordered 100 bags, we'd make 100 bags and deliver them 100 bags. We didn't need 500 stores from a big supermarket to kind of get it going. It was very slow. It enabled us to build the brand with small orders in kind of those more premium stores first, which for sure, if you're going down making it externally with massive MOQs, etc., you just can't do that. And over the years we sort of built that. So we went by the rent by the hour kitchen, sort of rent by the month kitchen, whatever. Now I'm into our new site that we moved into in during COVID. So it's given us the ability to build Joe and Seph slowly, test and trial, learn, build a brand, and build a brand, I guess, like a bit more slowly, but we've had some great growth, but in a way that kind of people have, we didn't need to stick it on the shelves of Tesco on day one. And actually what's really interesting is that back in 2010, if we had put Joe and Sephs on the shelf of a big supermarket nationwide, it wouldn't have sold. The category was not ready for a £3 sharing bag of popcorn.
Yeah.
When they hadn't quite worked out that, Butterkiss at the time was, I don't know, £1 or whatever it might be. Like that, there was a massive delta there. The category needed to sort of go through that stage of kind of, I'll pay a bit more for a proper corn, or I'll pay a bit more. So I think it's really interesting. Like if you've got the ability to kind of make your own products and do it yourself, it's a harder journey, but it gives you the ability to maybe build a business that's going to be around for a long time. I think if you get lucky and you do things the right way and you're really smart and everything else, you can do that kind of big launch and get it right straight away. Then obviously that's going to be a much that's a great path to follow, but it's quite difficult to do.
Yeah, I find it really interesting chatting to companies that have been built that way, because you often find the kind of the intellectual horsepower in the people that have been with the company for a while is a lot more organic, far less reliant on spending a lot on data externally or external consultants, because you instinctively live, eat, breathe the category. You have done, and you've trial and errored so many different permutations of it that you kind of instinctively right now this is what I'm going for, which I think is really fascinating.
It's really interesting. So Little Moons, for example, are based 2 doors down the road from our site here, and they've done the same journey of they created a product which no one else could manufacture at the time. We couldn't find anyone who could make popcorn as premium as we wanted it to be, and the demand wasn't really there to do big supermarkets from day one. And so, both brands are sort of built slowly but surely. So there are case studies of like where you can do it, but it's a very different path. But personally, I love it. I love being able to walk downstairs and see all of the sales team in particular love it, because they go, I've won that customer, that's awesome. In most other businesses, you'd press a button on a screen and the product, off it goes. Here they can go downstairs, they can see their order being made, the whole team are involved in putting it together and getting it out the door. Like it's a very different vibe.
Yeah, great. That's fantastic. No, thank you for sharing. I just thinking about leadership. So for people in their careers that maybe you're thinking about, I've got this side hustle, I've got this idea, or my mate's got a small business, and he's trying to kind of pull me in out of a big corporate and work for him. Like, what would your advice be to them? And I'm thinking here on the angle of like how does somebody assess whether it's a good opportunity? Because one thing that you'll be aware of this as much as me is that in any kind of startup marketplace, there's always a lot of landfill as well, stuff that just doesn't work, never gets quite off, or it's a good idea but terrible execution, or it's a fantastic execution but it's an awful concept. Like, how do you, if you're relatively early in your career and you want to catch the wave and get into startup world, how do you avoid the duds? What would your advice be to those people that are looking to be smart about the way they shape their career in that startup landscape?
So one of the things I hadn't quite recognised before we started Joe and Sephs was I had so many amazing ideas. Well, I thought they were amazing. And I'd write them down. I'd be like, this is great. Oh my God, I'm going to be on, well, there wasn't Dragon's Den at the time, but I was going to go and do that sort of thing. And I hadn't really acknowledged that actually the great idea is like, it's that famous saying of like, great idea is 20%, but it's all of 80% of its execution. And therefore, I guess if I recognised that, I probably would have spent a lot more time going, right, actually, I need to just do this, because otherwise it might be a great idea, but I don't actually know whether it's even going to work. So I guess my 2 cents would be definitely go for it, but just like de-risk it as best you can. So the first year of Joe and Sephs, we, as I said, we sort of made the popcorn in a rent by the hour kitchen on a weekend. And really the only other things we needed to do was try and build a category for popcorn. So a few emails to kind of premium stores. It was a very slow start, but I could do that for the first year and keep my job. So I could do it on the side. And so the more you can kind of do that and then go, actually, there is something here. I've got some information from kind of people in the industry who really know, like, this is right. I've spoken to some buyers who believe there's an opportunity. I understand the commercials, and this is like a viable business. But what I wouldn't do is what I tended to do before we did Joe and Sephs, which is I'd sit there, I've got a great idea, and I'd sort of knock up a business plan of sorts and go, don't know, is it going to work or isn't it? Like, there's, especially in FMCG, it's amazing. You could go into a shop today, any supermarket in the country, stick a couple of bags on the shelf and just stand there and wait and see whether people pick them up. Like you would know whether or not people would engage with your product. And then if you get a positive reaction to that, then go and book a stand at a consumer show and test your price point. Like, so with us, we tested £3 sharing bag price point at a consumer show. If people engage that price point, they're actually parting with their cash for your product. Not only do they believe it's great, it tastes good, but they're also happy with that throughput. So you can kind of get some really good confidence actually about what you're trying to do and de-risk it kind of quite early on, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastically put. Really good advice. Thank you. Adam and I, we have this phrase in the business because we've grown relatively for a recruitment company. We've been going nearly 5 years. There's only 7 of us now. We've done it quite slow, very similar approach. And we've always said, and we started in my shed as well. Like we always say, if it's worth doing badly. Just basically, let's get it done. Let's take the learnings on the chin and then double down on what works. And that always seems to have worked quite well for us. And I always find it's a theme in chatting to entrepreneurs that bootstrap it is, just get into the thick of it. You're going to make mistakes. You can't, but de-risk it as much as you can and then just crack on. And it's
100%.
Great to hear that.
100%. I think, obviously it's got to be the right stage in your life to do it, and the more that you can try and get organized stuff around it to make it work. But I think there's a lot to be said for bootstrapping. I feel like the last few years there's been a lot of focus on companies getting funding and kind of selling products at a loss and running. It doesn't feel like the market's going that way. It feels like the brands that people are the brands that sort of are performing well now, or the brands or that will be over the next few years, the brands that kind of have more of a sustainable business about them. So I think bootstrapping is probably quite a good thing.
Yeah. And just finally, for anybody that's thinking about this stuff that we've been discussing, any kind of books, conferences, resources that you recommend for self-development, because that's always a theme. If somebody's motivated, they're going to be working on their own sort of skill set, aren't they, after hours?
Yeah. And do you know what? I was actually thinking about this the other day. There is so much more now out there than there was back in 2010. So what would I recommend? Good to Great, Jim Collins classic book. Nice. Brilliant. Highly recommend reading that. Podcast, there's loads out there. I love Stephen Bartlett's one personally.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Chap Off Dragon's Den.
Diary of a CEO, isn't it?
Yeah, Diary of a CEO, exactly. The one that Huel sponsor. And network. So, speak to people in the industry. People are amazingly given of their time in FMCG. Most have been on the journey at some point and kind of get other people where they're going. So reach out, ask for advice. And kind of if you're getting serious about it, get a mentor.
Very good advice.
Either formally or informally. So when I first started Joe and Sephs, I reached out to Tom Mercer, who's the guy that runs MoMA.
Yeah.
And so for the first few years, he was kind of like the guy that I would call up and ask stuff about and now I've got it's a bit more of a formal structure. I've kind of got with a mentor, just sort of points me in the right direction on a few things. And so it's really useful to help kind of. There's loads out there that you can use.
Yeah. I'd add to that as well. If you're listening or watching it and you're part of a bigger company and you want to lay some track for 2 years' time, because like you said there, Adam, it's not quite the right time to make that plug-in startup or set up your own side hustle. Yeah. It's amazing in most big companies how many people would like a mentee as part of their development, and there aren't enough keen people 100%. That are humble enough to go and grab that mentorship opportunity. Yeah. And I think wherever you are, that is just golden advice. Yeah, definitely.
I think it's so good to be able to step out of your day to day and spend an hour with someone who's sort of prods and challenges, and when you're going through a tough time, you can kind of get some good kind of sounding board and some advice. I think it really helps, especially we've got a decent sized team now because we manufacture. We've got a good number of people at this site, and it helps kind of make sure that actually I want Joe and Seph to be the best place to work. Yeah. And so the more that I can learn from people who have been there, done that, got the postcard, the better. I'm not ashamed of copying great ideas.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's my dad's been in business quite a while, and he always says, some of the most successful business people he's ever worked with, just take a good idea and make it better. Exactly. Just keep it really simple. Just make it better. Add your twist and crack on.
Fundamentally, that is what we've tried to do with Joe and Seph. We've taken something that people love, popcorn.
Yeah.
And we've gone, actually, it's a bit average. The branding's not great. The product could be way better, et cetera, et cetera. How do we make it taste amazing? And that's kind of what we've done with Joe and Seph's. I think we found our own path, and we found our own way of kind of, I think people who come along with a Me Too version of what we do or what popcorn does, like that isn't probably going to be necessarily the most successful. But I think by having your own, by taking that as a principle and kind of having your own take on it, I think is a really great way to go about things.
Yeah. The Me Too works for Aldi, doesn't it? But most people don't have that kind of pulling power on TV.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, they are experts at it.
Yeah, exactly. There's only one Aldi. Well, no, it's been an absolutely fantastic chat, Adam. I've really appreciated your time. I'm sure those listening and watching have as well. If you're listening and watching and you enjoyed this, please do reach out to Adam. Thank him for his time. People that come on our show do this because they want to invest back in the industry, and that's why we do it. So just, and more importantly, go and try Joe and Seph's and keep an eye out on what's coming through the pipeline. So just on that point, Adam, where can people keep abreast of what's going on? Obviously, there's a mailing list. Just give us a bit more insight into your social, how people can keep up to speed on the comms there for you guys.
So we are on all of those social media channels with the tag Joe and Seph, JoeAndSeph. We are on LinkedIn, and we'll put kind of more, if kind of you're interested more in the kind of business journey, LinkedIn's a good one to follow.
Yeah.
And from a kind of being first to hear about new products and new launches, our mailing list, which is joeandsephs.co.uk. You can find the box at the bottom of the page. Stick your email in there and you'll find out about stuff before everyone else does.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much. We'll see you soon, guys. Take care.
Nice
and stay cool in the summer heat. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Check out the playlist here for more content like this. Click the donuts to subscribe so you never miss an update, and give us a like and a comment so we know what content you'd like to see from us. See you next time.